Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. This is Nathan Ware with Rain Networks, and today we're going to get into part 2 of our VIPRE Endpoint Security Cloud videos. In part 1 of our VIPRE Endpoint Security Cloud video, we talked a little bit about um, creating policies and then creating agents, because those two things kind of work together in terms of you can make policies and then make agent installers that have your policies embedded into them. It's kind of a cool way that VIPRE does that. With today's talk, what we're going to talk about is exclusions. We're kind of starting with the hard stuff. So the first two videos here will be the most difficult, kind of, I guess, the trickiest part of this cloud console. It's quite an easy console actually, but these two pieces are the trickiest components, the policies part and the exclusions part. We're just going to getting these two difficult topics out of the way so we can then transition more into the user interface stuff, which is the easier and fun stuff that we'll get to in our third video. So let's talk about exclusions. What are exclusions? So every security software package has exclusions. What it is it's your opportunity to tell your security software, hey, security software, don't scan this file, this folder, this domain, whatever it might be that you don't want it to scan. There might be a lot of reasons why you don't want your security software to scan a directory. I'll use one that I just was doing recently with a client. This client uses Sage security software, or rather Sage accounting software. And the Sage accounting software, it's a pretty heavy, thick piece of software. It's got a fairly inefficient, slow database backend, and it needs a lot of resources. And so they felt like, because they were running an older server, to give their client machines all the performance they could give them, they were just going to have their security software not scan this directory. Now, that's maybe possibly a questionable decision on their point, but we're all looking for a balance of security and performance. It was their choice, so they wanted to be able to program that into their security software. So that would be one example of why you might want to make an exclusion in your security software. I've seen ones where somebody has like some custom piece of software, like a really old piece of software that has an unusual processing to it. And so sometimes a security software will mistakenly flag it as malware because it doesn't recognize it when it's actually a safe piece of software. No security software package is perfect, right? So there's opportunities like that that will arise in kind of unique situations. So those are just some examples of why you might want to make an exclusion rule. And luckily, VIPRE did a nice job here with their cloud package where it's very easy to make these exclusions rule. So let's talk a little bit about how to create an exclusion rule in the VIPRE Endpoint Security Cloud. Okay, so what we do is we're going to click on exclusions over here on the left. And there's some basic exclusions that are already in the VIPRE Endpoint Security Cloud, but what we're going to do today is we're going to make a custom exclusion. So what we want to do is click on custom over here on the left, and then the upper right, we're going to say add exclusion list, and then we're going to give it a name. So my exclusion list. All right. And now this is where we can now put in our different directories. So for example, this client that I was working with recently where we did the Sage software, what we did is we went in the upper right here, we said add exclusion. And we can do it by either file name, file path, or folder. In his case, we did folder. So we clicked on folder here. And then here we put in Sage and then star.star. So C:/Sage/star.star. So we were telling VIPRE here, hey, just leave that entire directory alone. Don't scan it. We're cool with that. So there, we did that. We click add, and now we've told VIPRE that that's going to be part of our exclusion. We can also do a domain or a process. So if we had a process within Windows that we wanted VIPRE not to scan, we could put that in there. A web domain. This kind of ties into the browser protection piece, which if you saw the policies video I did, kind of talked a little bit about how there's a browser protection module that can be put into VIPRE. And so this would be the exclusion list for that. So if VIPRE was flagging a website you didn't want it to flag, you could do add exclusion, put in the domain name here, and right, ESPN.com, and there we could tell VIPRE, hey, leave ESPN.com alone. Okay, so pretty basic. So now when we want to apply this exclusion list, we do this by clicking on scope. Okay, this is where we tell VIPRE what computers to apply this exclusion list to. So we really have kind of two main options here. First, we can say edit policy associations up here in the upper right and apply it to a policy. All right, so this is why I kind of use this as a follow-up video to my policies video. So remember in my first video, we made a policy called test policy for today, and then we were going to make an agent installer that had that policy embedded into it. So now I could take this exclusion list and tack it on to this policy, and any computer that has this policy will then get this exclusion list. Okay, so now I've made my exclusions, I've now attached it to the policy, and any computer that I have that's going to get this policy will also get this exclusion. So essentially, an exclusions list is like a child property to a policy. All right, it's like an add-on. All right, so that's option one, and I can have it go to any one or multiple. You know, I could select multiple policies here if I wanted. Okay. Now, my second way that I can apply this is I can click switch to site scope. Okay, when I click switch to site scope, it's going to tell me that this exclusion list is going to get applied to all policies and all devices. Okay, I'm going to hit no to that, but this is the second way that you can apply this exclusion list. So if I use the policy associations method, I'm applying this exclusion list to very specific computers, very specific things, right? If I do the site scope method up here in the upper right, I'm just saying, hey, VIPRE, put this on every computer in my cloud portal. And this exclusions list will then get attached to that. And there's obviously business reasons why you may want to apply it to every computer or maybe just to a select number of computers. Okay, so this is how the exclusion list piece works. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments box below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. And I hope you enjoyed this video. In our third video in the series, we're going to dive in a little bit more into the user interface related stuff like the how to look at your devices, the dashboard, the reports, and that kind of stuff. It should be cool. It's a lot of the fun features here in the VIPRE Endpoint Security Cloud. All right, thanks for joining us today and keep an eye out for future videos.